Hello, my name is Avitoli Jimo. I teach social anthropology in the University of Delhi. Today, I am going to talk about a very interesting topic called religious conversion among the tribes in India. Religion is not just about ideas about supernatural. It is a theory of the world. It is a way of constructing reality that is perceived to be real to those who experience it. If this is so, then why do individuals choose new religions suddenly? To change one's religion is not simple. It is about changing one's world. It raises difficult questions like what can inspire such total transformation? How is it achieved? What are its effects? What does conversion mean for theories of agency and cultural construction of reality? The first step in understanding what conversion is and how it works is to explore ethnographically how different tribes have understood it. In India, the tribes have undergone transformation at various aspects. The tribes in India are marginalized in every aspect, their religious identity on the verge of being assimilated. So whether it is internal or external conversion, if it involves change in beliefs and practices, it is conversion. Religious conversion is one important factor that has altered the structure of their society and reshaped their identity. Therefore, it is imperative to deliberate on the theme of religious conversion, especially in the tribal studies, with inputs from psychology, sociology, theology, and anthropology. The present module will explain various theories in social sciences that seek to explain conversion. 4 case studies have been selected to give the idea of internal conversion, societal transformation due to conversion, conversion due to cultural synthesis, and indigenizing the new convert's religion. You will learn that there is much more to conversion that need to be studied. How are tension and frictions between the assimilated group and one that lost a member negotiated? But first let me lay down a theoretical foundation for your understanding. Conversion is a Western idea, and the word comes from Latin. The central paradigm of conversion in the West is Paul's conversion on the road to Damascus. Paul used to persecute those who believed in Jesus. On his way to Damascus, he was blinded by a powerful light and heard Jesus speaking to him. He was temporarily blinded. Paul was converted suddenly and dramatically. His conversion is by an external agent. This passive view of conversion is called Pauline paradigm. Pauline paradigm tends to be taken seriously by situationalists. Situationalists are those social scientists who emphasize the lack of behavior consistency in the individual and the great power of the situation. There is another contrasting view who lay emphasis on stable traits and substantiation for cross-situational consistency. The view on religious and conversion has oscillated between Pauline paradigm and the view that emphasizes on the ability of individual to control his or her own life. Religious conversion has interested social scientists for over a century. The psychologists dominated early research. Psychologists like G. Stanley Hall at Clark University focused on sudden emotional conversion occurring among the adolescents. The middle of 20th century was dominated by sociologists and social psychologists. After 1960, sociology started showing interest in new religious movements. Sociologists examine process of conversion in an individual from a gradualist perspective. These studies also examine issues of apostasy and deconversion. Ultimately, social scientists moved from tight focus on evangelical Protestantism to a growing interest in non-Western religions. Early anthropology barely addressed the topic of religious conversion. It was said that at the inception of conversion studies, Franz Boas was present when Hall came out with 2 volumes on adolescence. Rather than dealing with conversion studies, Franz Boas sought to debunk Hall's argument by sending his student Margaret Mead to study society's relief of adolescent stress. Only in the 1980s, some serious work was done in religious conversion studies by anthropologists. For example, Harriet Whitehead's analysis of conversion to Scientology in 1987. Andrew Boxer and Stephen Glaser published an edited book of the anthropology of religious conversion. Now, this edited work contains rich ethnographic case studies of religious conversion from across the world. Lewis Rambo explained how anthropologists are making important contributions to the study of religious conversion by comparing with psychology. Anthropologists appreciate and richly describe the context in which religious change takes place. Psychologists focus on individuals virtually ignoring the rich contextual matrix of conversion. Anthropologists examine intricate and subtle processes that transpire in the convert's first contact with a new religious option. They contribute to the study of conversion by providing analysis and insight into long-term consequences of religious change. Psychology and sociology often produce studies that are synchronic, that is, one particular point in time. Anthropologists tend to return to the research sites, establishing long-term relationships. Since longitudinal studies are more expensive and extremely difficult to conduct, they are not attempted by either psychologists or sociologists. Theoretical flexibility to the phenomenon of conversion. Anthropologists do not rush to impose rigid theoretical interpretations to their data. They accept complexity of conversion events. They avoid hasty or sweeping conclusions, and they are willing to restate earlier conclusions in the light of new data. Anthropologists attempted to fit theories to their data, not force the data to fit their theories. Earlier classic studies conducted by psychologists like G. Stanley Hall, William James, were primarily from the perspective of Christian psychology. Austin Bruce defined conversion as a form of passage, a turning from and to that is neither syncretism nor absolute breach. Conversion is a cultural passage more robust, possibly experimental at first. It becomes a deliberate change with definite direction and shape. Andrew Boxer and Stephen Glaser looked at conversion as an individual process, which involves change in worldview and affiliation. But this change occurs within a context of institutional procedures and social relationships. Andrew Boxer went on to define conversion as not merely a site of celebration and reinforcement of group beliefs, but also a site of conflict, a point at which competing notions of group and others directly confront one another. Conversion can become one of the inflammatory and divisive moments in community life. Rambo argued that the definition of conversion remains problematic. The word conversion is generally limited to notions of radical, sudden change, confined to the Pauline paradigm of sudden dramatic change, unexpected revelation, a radical reversal of previous beliefs and allegiances, and an underlying assumption that converts are passive respondents to outside forces. Clark argued that religion may profess to be as rigid and permanent as thought, but it is unable to hold matters that are related to define in such contained spaces. Clark opined that religion is more like a tent. The fluidity of their boundaries and structures are inherent to their whole existence. Religion is not a finished product. It can be deliberately relocated, dismantled, and reassembled. It is constantly being given new meanings. In this logical framework, religious conversion can be posited as a community-initiated attempt to create transmutations and transfigurations in its own God-world-human symbol system. Conversion in India, especially with special reference to tribes, testify to this malleable character of religion. The study of religious conversion has primarily focused on shift from religious category to another. For example, Hinduism to Islam, or Hinduism to Christianity, or vice versa. However, David Hardiman, 2003, pointed out that there are internal conversions that take place within a religion, for example, from one sect to another or from one denomination to another. Most of the scheduled tribes in India have their own traditional religion, which is loosely bracketed as animism. Gurye has argued that there is similarity between animism and Hinduism, thus calling Indian tribes as backward Hindus. There is a tendency to club traditional religion practiced by the tribes as Hinduism. Srinivas chose to adopt a rather different terminology to describe this process as Sanskritization. This means certain castes and tribes who were considered lower in hierarchy, had sought to raise their status by reforming their way of life in conformity with the values, practices, and rituals of the higher castes. Such case can be exemplified in the Govind movement among the Bhils of Western India in the early 20th century. Bhagat movement among the Bhil. Bhagat movement among the Bhils was in fact narratives of assertion which got entangled with the concept of conversion. This movement began in 1911 when a Banjara called Govind began to preach to the Bhils. Govind first began to reform his life after he met a passerby who recited to him a verse from Tulsidas. It goes on like this: The root of Dharma is Daya, the root of sin is Abhiman. Tulsi, don't shun Daya, while you have life in you. Now Govind was very impressed with this verse that he stopped drinking liquor and eating meat. He started taking daily bath like a Brahmin. He wore a necklace of Rudraksh and remembered God daily. In 1911, Govind preached to the Bhils not to commit theft, not to deceive others, not to commit adultery, stop drinking liquor, give up alms, live by agriculture, live in peace with others, abandon exorcists and spirit mediums, wear a yellow turban and Rudraksh beads around the neck, and to fly a special flag over the house. The Bhils were previously stereotyped as having thieving in the blood, and it was this reputation that they themselves played up to. The movement escalated so suddenly in 1913 when a large number of Bhils began to follow Govind. The main areas affected were Dungarpur and Banswara states of Rajasthan, and Sindh state and the British district of Panchmahals in Gujarat. The rulers of these princely states were disturbed by the new movement for two reasons. One, they were generally suspicious of self-assertion by the Bhils, and second, they also depended heavily on the revenue from the tax on liquor. The officials of the princely states started harassing Govind followers by tearing down the flags and forcing them to drink liquor. Govind was expelled and shun out from all the princely states. Govind then declared that he and his followers will go to Mangat Hill to establish an independent kingdom for the Bhils. The princes took the help of the British to suppress the Bhil movement. Despite repression of this movement, Govind continued to be revered by the Bhils of that area. The sect continues to sustain itself even after the death of Govind. It is now known as the Govind Panth. Govind saw himself as a person who had achieved understanding with God, whom he fondly called as Malik, and sought to teach this to the Bhils. His followers did not talk in terms of conversion to Hinduism. They also did not assert that they are now Hindus. This claim was, however, met by the Gandhian nationalists who were working in that area from 1919 onwards. The nationalists sought to appropriate the movement to their own agenda, redefine it as a movement for conversion to both Hinduism and Indian nationalism. In India, the process of conversion is normally associated with proselytizing world religions, which are external to India. Example, Islam and Christianity. As far as Bhils assertion is concerned, their narratives of assertion got intertwined with the concept of conversion. Conversion to Christianity, the case of tribes in Northeast India. Christianity was first introduced into Northeast India during the Mughal period, according to Frederick Downes, 2003. The Christian conversion movement that led to the creation of a community in the Northeast, which made up nearly 7.8% of the Christian population of India by mid-20th century, began with the arrival of Protestant and Catholic missionaries from North America and Europe. The great majority of converts were from tribal communities. In the Brahmaputra Valley of Assam, most Christians are found among the plain tribals or Adivasis, which include people from Jharkhand working on tea gardens, the Garos, the Kacharis, the Boros. However, the highest concentrations of Christianity are from the hill tribes, mostly from Meghalaya, Nagaland, Mizoram, and the hills of Manipur. The missionaries from Europe and North America could not work without the permission of the British. Though the objectives of the British government and the mission were fundamentally different, each found the other useful in many ways. The missionaries benefited from the security and the prestige of the government, and the latter found it convenient to turn over responsibility of running schools to the mission. The missions and the government did not see eye to eye in issues like slavery, opium uses, and attitude towards traditional culture, but the tribal communities must have thought that there was close relationship between the two. Frederick Downes called it political imperial explanation. Another explanation concerning conversion movements in Northeast India was infusion of large number of missionaries and expenditure of huge amount of money. Fur Hammondorf, 1946, explained the conversion movements among the Nagas in the 1930s as due to the people being dazzled by the prestige of the white man, and a good deal of money was poured into the country by Western missions to pay pastors. However, in the 1930s, no Western church was in a stable financial position to pour a large number of money. Anyway, due to the impact of Great Depression, among the Northeast tribals, the villagers supported the local pastors. But this mission-centered explanation is not taken seriously by opponents of Christian missionary work. Another explanation Frederick Downes came up with regarding conversion movement in Northeast India is that conversion takes place when people are faced with crisis. For example, large-scale conversion took place among the Khasi following the Great Earthquake of 1897. In the Northeast India, most of the traumatic changes are brought by the British administration. These changes have nothing to do with Christian missionaries. The radical changes brought by the British administration affected every aspect of tribal life. For example, for the first time in the history of the tribals in Northeast India, external political authority was introduced with an active administration. Introduction of new administrative and judicial system undermined the traditional polity. Introduction of money economy that undermined the self-sufficient barter system of economy. Establishment of modern communications and road. Inflow of large number of outsiders in the form of administrators, soldiers, merchants, and missionaries who provided new lifestyle models. Introduction of laws that severely affected traditional institutions, for example, banning of headhunting practice among the Naga tribes. Frederick Downes argued that Christianity became very attractive to the hill tribes of Northeast during the British period. It was mainly due to the new cultural synthesis it provided. The mission schools provided them required skills to function in the new world. It also provided them with a cultural synthesis that provided them with a new worldview while retaining and maintaining their traditional values. Adaptation to the local culture, the case of tribes in central India. Christianity came among the tribes of central India in 1845, which had wide social, cultural, economic, and political implications in the future for both the traditional tribals and the Christian tribals. Central India is abode to many tribes: Santals, Mundas, Karyas, Orans, Hos, Bhunyas, Berias, Gonds, Gorns, Asurs, Kodakus, and Korvas, etc. Within a span of 75 years, there were 6 different missions in Jharkhand and parts of Chhattisgarh, Orissa, and West Bengal. With the coming of several missions to Chotanagpur, many tribals embraced Christianity. As a result, there was an emergence of new community of the Christian tribals. Then on, confrontations between new community and the traditional tribals started. Marinas Gujur explained how the process of adaptation to the tribal culture in the church shaped relationships between the old and new community. The Orans were agriculturists. Their feast of the harvest, which is called Navakani, and feast of the cattle, that is Sorai, were important feasts in their culture. Incorporation of these 2 feasts fit perfectly with the theme of Thanksgiving, which was central to the church. Replacement of foreign terms by words of Munda origin and culture in the prayer book. Hindiizing the Adivasi church at the cost of tribal languages. The Catholic diocese in North India, being Hindi-speaking, focused on translation of the Bible and rubrics into Hindi. Simultaneously with Hindiization of the tribal church, efforts were also made to Adivization of the Roman rites. Important books of prayers and observances were translated into Mundari language. Tribalization of Christian worship. The use of broad stole with colorful tribal design, symbolism in the altar, use of light and incense in tribal style, etc. Indigenizing Christianity. Around 1906, the American missionaries stationed at Impor, that is a village in the present state of Nagaland, Reverend Bailey and Reverend Longwell were finding it very difficult to minister to one of the fiercest Naga tribes, that is Sumi Naga. They were frustrated at the fruitless pursuit of missionary works in the Sumi Naga area. The Sumi Naga had a different political organization in contrast to more democratic Naga tribes. They had hereditary chiefs whose decision impacted the lives of the villagers. Unless the chiefs were converted, it was difficult to convert the villagers. The missionaries had to go through village chiefs in order to reach out to the villagers. Eventually, in 1920, a man from a Situ village was the first to convert to Christianity. Slowly, people started converting. By the time a sizable number of people converted to Christianity, then tension started. Tension started coming up between the converts and the followers of traditional religion. The converts began to call themselves as those who have accepted new faith, and those following traditional religion were labeled as those who drink liquor. Meanwhile, the then subdivision officer of Mokokchung formulated rules against conversion. The British administration came up with the following rules. Village chiefs were forbidden to convert to Christianity. In case they convert, the government will strip off his red shawl. Actually, this is a symbolic shawl given by the British to the village chiefs. A house tax of ₹3 will be charged from new converts as against the normal rate of ₹2. People were ordered to follow animistic rituals and ceremonies despite conversion to a new religion. Christian hymns and songs were banned from the village. The converts were forbidden to put up back door while constructing the house. The back door was a significant part of the traditional house involving rituals, taboos, and omens. Many problems started coming up between traditional religion and Christianity. New converts were strictly forbidden to touch liquor in any form, including rice beer. It went to the extent of expelling their fellow Christians from the church who indulged in drinking even after converting to Christianity. Rice beer was a popular drink among the Sumi Naga before the advent of Christianity. Another problem arose over the ceremonies that require participation of the whole village. The non-Christians insisted that every member of the village must observe the animistic ceremony, and nobody should violate the ceremony by leaving the village on that day. The converts refused to participate in ceremonies that require sacrifices for the propitiation of the spirits. The friction between the new converts and the non-converts continued. Tensions continued, but eventually most of the Sumi Naga converted to Christianity. With this newfound worldview, the society underwent a huge transformation. However, in the past 2 or 3 decades, with the progress of formal education, the Sumi Naga people have started to realize that they can be Christians and at the same time retain their Naga identity. For example, the celebration of traditional festivals like Tuluni and Ahuna in the church is a testament of indigenizing Christianity. Another conspicuous symbol of indigenizing Christianity is the erection of a big gate celebrating 100 years of Christianity, where the pillars of the gate have traditional religion or animistic motifs. Apart from the church hymns, songs and indigenous tunes are being sung in the church. People attend the church service in their traditional attire, which was once linked to animistic tradition and was discouraged. Concluding remarks. In India, internal conversion is not deliberated much. Rather, it is labeled as Gharwapsi, or homecoming. Most of the studies on conversion among the tribes are to do with conversion to Christianity. For tribal Christians, conversion to Christianity represents a rejection of their social and economic marginalization and descent from the hegemonic socio-religious order. For the tribes in Northeast India, it was more of cultural synthesis, as they were located far away from the caste-based society. The constant negotiation of the convert with the traditional faith has helped indigenize tribal churches and tribalize alien rites. The tribes in central India and northeast India bear testament to that. Among the Oraon, when a child is born, she is baptized in the church through a ritual of pouring water on her forehead. From the religious point of view, she is now a member. However, she has to be performed another ritual called chathi for her incorporation to the tribe. Jati is not a religious ritual of the Christians. Among the Nagas, though certain traditional practices like sexual laxity, multiple spouses, drinking rice beer, animistic rituals are prohibited, yet certain customs related to kinship, governance, consumption of meat, succession and inheritance, village and resource management, customary law, they all continue to function within the Christian community. Paul Hebert concluded that in actual experience, there is no conversion that is complete, total, and perfect. If we look at the complexities of individual or human experience, complete conversion is a goal to work toward. It is not a finished product. If religious conversion is about change of worldview, then irrespective of whether conversion is internal or external, it is still a conversion. Thank you.